Hello BookTube, I'm Jonathan, and today I have a book haul for you. These are some sci-fi books that I picked up recently that I don't think are super famous. You might not have heard of them, but they might pique your interest. So it's going to be a mix of authors that you might be familiar with, but these books aren't necessarily their most famous works, or they're perhaps some lesser known or newer authors, and these books came out recently and you might not have heard about them yet. So before we get into the books, I do just want to mention something from my last video. I said to you guys that if you didn't click the subscribe button, the Shrike would get you. And I'll be honest, being impaled on a tree of pain does seem like a bit of a disproportionate response for not clicking the subscribe button, but it worked. For a video with that many views, it probably got about 3 times as many subscribers as normal. So here's what I'm going to do. Here's my offer for this week's video. If you don't click the subscribe button, the Shrike's going to come to your house. He's going to open up your smart TV and he's going to log you out of all of your apps. You're going to have to log back into all of them. You're going to forget the passwords for some of them and have to go through a password reset. You're going to get an angry text from your cousin sharing your Netflix password, asking them why they got kicked out of Netflix. So I think we can all agree, not as bad as an endless eternity of pain and suffering. But I think we can also agree, pretty inconvenient. Less convenient than just clicking the subscribe button. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get into some sci-fi books, starting with All Flesh is Grass by Clifford D. Simak. All right, we're starting with a classic, and we have All Flesh is Grass from Clifford D. Simak. This is the copy that I picked up. It is from Open Road, and I don't think the art covers the cover art. That's the correct order to say that. The cover art in these editions are particularly inspired, but I do like pink and purple, so not the worst cover art ever. Anyway, Simak. I've read 3 books from Simak so far, and I've scored them an 8, a 9, and a 10 out of 10. So he is on a track, at least the potential track, to becoming an all-time favorite author. I really like Simak. Time and Again is one of my all-time favorite books. Folio Society, if you're listening. Suntap Press, if you're listening. Whoever's out there, please make a fancy edition of Time and Again, because I would definitely buy it from you. So anyway, the bar is high for All Flesh is Grass, and I believe the premise for this one is something like intergalactic beings place a kind of dome around a city, and they do it with benevolent reasons, intentions, but it's kind of scary for the people inside, and so I think the story follows the people inside and how they react to this, what it means for society, all the big questions that would prompt from the people in that situation. And I'm intrigued to see what Simak does with it, because I think he is a thematically very rich writer. I like his prose. I like his ideas. I just resonate with him. I connect with his ideas. So I think there's going to be some interesting philosophy in here, maybe some cool sci-fi concepts too. Let me know if you've read this one and how it compares to other Simak books. All right, up next we have Teranesia by Greg Egan. So here we have Mr. Hard Sci-Fi and an Australian sci-fi author, Greg Egan. This will be the 4th book I've read from him, Teranesia. Again, what are these, Nightshade book editions? They're okay. I kind of like the art on this one. It's a little bit intriguing. The yellow sort of pops, although the white spines are kind of bland. But anyway, not too bad. I love Egan. I have read 4 of his books now. I've read Permutation City, Quarantine, Diaspora, and Distress. I finished Distress recently. I haven't posted a full review on that for the channel yet, but the short version is I really liked it. Did it reach the bar of Permutation City? Well, that's a quite high bar because it is the bar. I think that is a perfect 10 out of 10 book. So I'm going to try not to compare this to Permutation City. I'm just going to ask the question, did I like it? And I probably will, because Greg Egan always includes hard sci-fi concepts that are interesting and intriguing, and he just escalates them and they spiral out of control. And I just like how crazy his books get. There are some technical descriptions. I don't necessarily understand everything that's going on. And the plot and the characters can be a little bit hit or miss, but sometimes they're really good too. So yeah, the high end, the ceiling on a Greg Egan book is very, very high. And I think this book is set in Indonesia and it's to do with genetic mutations. So if you like biological science fiction, this might be one for you. I've heard it compared to Blood Music by Greg Bear, and that book rules. So if this is as good or better than Blood Music, I'm in for a good time. Moving on, we have The Immeasurable Heaven by Casper Guillen. So this is a rather recent 2025 release, and I have this paperback edition from Solaris, and I like it quite a lot. Hopefully the green screen doesn't mess with the green colors in it, but it's kind of trippy. It kind of gives out, I do like sort of like technicolor, neon, vibrant, colorful things. I'm kind of like a moth or just like a squirrel or something. Show me something shiny and my attention will be attracted towards it. Anyway, I think the pitch for this book is that it takes place billions of years in the past. I bet you expected I was going to say in the future. I thought I was going to say in the future, but no, I said in the past. And a cool thing about this, a unique thing about this book is that there are no human characters. That would be kind of wacky if there were humans billions of years ago. So I think all of the alien species are completely different. They're supposed to be genuinely alien. This book is supposed to be pretty weird. I like that. Something unique, something ambitious. Am I going to be able to make sense of these creatures? Am I going to be able to connect them to them? Am I going to be able to understand them? Maybe not. We're going to find out. Bart from Bart's Bookspace read this, and he quite enjoyed it. And we have pretty similar taste in sci-fi. Every now and again, we get into a little bit of a beef, but 8 times out of 10, I think we're pretty similar in terms of our reviews. So hopefully this is one where we align, because I think he enjoyed this one. And for our next book, we have The Doomed City by Arkady and Boris Strugatsky. So we're back with another classic, and here we have the SF Masterworks edition of The Doomed City. And I quite like the SF Masterworks editions. They tend to have colorful covers. They have the ridiculous yellow stained spines, which are very polarizing. I like them. I think it jumps off the shelf, even if it's for the wrong reasons. And I'm looking forward to reading this one because I've read 2 Strugatsky brothers books so far, Roadside Picnic and Hard to Be a God. I liked Hard to Be a God, and I really liked Roadside Picnic, and it's a book that I like more and more over time. It has powerful ideas that stay with you, and I think that is a strength of philosophical science fiction, and the Strugatsky brothers in particular. So there's an interesting quote on the cover of this. A book so politically risky that its very existence was kept secret for 16 years. Now, normally when a book is described as edgy, risky, dangerous, all right, that's just marketing. All right, those are just buzzwords, right? In this case, it actually was. In order to get some of their ideas, their writings past the censors, was no easy feat for the Strugatsky brothers in Russia at the time that it was written. So genuinely brave politically, and I think genuinely brave in a literary sense as well. This isn't as famous as Roadside Picnic, but I've heard some people say it's their best book. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. It's a dystopian book in which there is this city where it's bordered by an abyss on one side and a giant wall on the other, and it seems kind of manufactured. The sunrise, and they turn the sun on, turn the sun off, something like that. Reminded me a little bit of Dark City, the description, that movie, which is pretty cool. And there are people that have been placed in this city that are real characters from history. So it's going to be interesting to see why they're there, why they're present. What's the deal with this city? Well, whole lot of questions which are probably not going to lead to hunky-dory, rosy answers. But I think this is something that I'm probably going to be emotionally and philosophically affected by. Check out The Doomed City. And up next, we have a 2-for-1. We have Ghost of the Neon God and This Machine Kills Billionaires, both by T.R. Napa. So firstly, these covers are awesome. T.R. Napa always kills it with his covers. If you're someone that likes to pick up a book and be able to get a sense of what this book is about, these books are cyberpunk. You look at these and you immediately know that they are cyberpunk. So, I have read two T.R. Napa books. I have read 36 Streets and The Escher Man, and these books both take place in the same universe, but they are standalone novels. So these books take place within that same universe. We have Ghost of the Neon God. This is a novella, so you can see that's pretty short, pretty easy to get through. I think this kind of sounds like it has a sort of thriller vibe to it, kind of taking on the man, the system in this kind of really cool cyberpunk world, which has really awesome technology and action and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And then This Machine Kills Billionaires has a novella in it, but also 3 short stories. So this is kind of a collection. So I am someone that is drawn to novels. So if you are like me, I would recommend probably picking up 36 Streets first. But if you are someone that likes novellas or wants a short story to just try and get a taste for the world, get a taste for the author's writing, these are going to be some great places to start. So I would check out the description, look out whatever sounds interesting to you, and give it a go. I think, so this one has a few things in it, but I think that the novella has something to do with billionaires start dying, and there is a person who has to coordinate with an artificial intelligence. And I like how T.R. Napa is able to blend sort of these kind of like tropey aesthetics of cyberpunk, but with really interesting ideas that don't feel dated. It's not necessarily retro futurism. It's relevant to today. I think he has some really interesting ideas about where technology is and where technology is headed, and he delivers it to you in these kind of like fun, fast-paced, action-driven narratives. So I'm super pumped to read these because I love the first 2 books I've read. Now I'm going to dive into the shorter stuff, the short stories and the novellas. Moving on, we have Mumbai Singularity by Nim Coy. So speaking of cyberpunk, we have another cyberpunk book, this time combining the kind of cyberpunk detective thriller with Hindu mythology, and that is Mumbai Singularity. So I don't really know that much about Hindu mythology when I'm trying to think of science fiction that I've read which incorporates that. The only one that's coming to mind is Lord of Light by Roger Zelazny, and that was a very interesting read, although I'm not sure I understood all of that. So it's going to be interesting to sort of combine some of those elements to do with Hindu gods with the cyberpunk technology of this world, and a storyline that sounds a little bit like Altered Carbon by Richard K. Morgan, maybe with a little bit of Aurora Rising by Alistair Reynolds thrown in. We have sort of a detective where like things are going wrong inside people's heads and his partner is affected by it. So there's this case to try and track down what is going on, what are the biggest sort of connections behind these technical malfunctions or technological viruses or something like that. And I'm looking forward to diving into this world and learning more about it. This is a rather recent release. It doesn't have a ton of reviews, but the reviews that were on Goodreads looked pretty good. So if you have picked this one up, let me know if you think I'm going to enjoy Mumbai Singularity. And for our next book, we have The Speed of Dark by Elizabeth Moon. So this is probably the most famous book in today's book haul. It did win a Nebula Award, but I feel like I don't hear people talk about it that often, and I'm intrigued by it. It is The Speed of Dark. I have the Valentine Books edition. Bit of an unremarkable cover, but I do like the matte feel of it, so it's got something going for it. Anyway, the premise for this one is that in the future, technology, science has removed a lot of conditions from the human population, but there are some people that are left behind. And the main character, he has autism, but then he is given the opportunity to have a procedure that would make him just like everybody else. It would remove his autism. And there's this sort of question of, well, would he still be him? How would that affect his life and his identity, and questions like that? So this reminded me a little bit of Flowers for Algernon, which I think is fantastic. I think this might be a touch more sciencey than that one, but it's dealing with these big ideas, how these things affect people, and it's going to be interesting to read this story from the perspective of this neurodivergent character. So let me know if you have read this one. I know a lot of people connect to it and really like it. Let me know if you think I'm going to enjoy it. And for our penultimate book, we have Discovery by J.A.J. Minton. So some of you BookTube fans out there may be familiar with this one because this comes from Talking Story. John, Amy, and Jacob over at the Talking Story channel, they make up J.A.J. Minton. They wrote Discovery. This is book 1 of their series, Strange Eons. So go subscribe to Talking Story. My threat of the Shrike logging you out of all of your streaming apps, it applies to any of the channels that I mentioned in this video as well. So go subscribe to them. Discovery. This is, I believe, a genre bender. Blender, I guess either could work. Hybrid genre. It has some sci-fi, some horror, some fantasy, cosmic horror. Looks like it kind of has some Lovecraft vibes in there. And it is a story about something being found at the bottom of the ocean. In the sea. I mean, sea's a big place, man. Probably not as big as space, but sea's pretty big. There's some weird, dark, mysterious stuff down there. And something is found at the bottom of the ocean. And it's kind of reminded me a little bit of Sphere. This is one of my favorite Michael Crichton books. But I think that, that kind of, well, I don't want to spoil anything. That goes in one direction. I'm guessing this is going to go in a slightly different direction. I'll have to read it and find out. So I'm a big fan of them. I'm sure I'm going to be a big fan of the book. Check out Discovery. So this is the last book, and I think the nicest edition of the physical copies I picked up. This is Voidverse by Damien Ober, and it is a shiny cover, so hopefully it's not reflecting too much light into the camera. But this is pretty awesome because this is just the standard hardback edition. This was not an expensive special edition. This is your typical hardback price, but it does feel like a special edition because you have this cool cover with the cutout in it, and then you have sprayed edges. And then if it doesn't take me too long to take the cover off, I'll show you that it has some board art as well. So they did a really good job with this. I was quite impressed by, let me shout out the publisher, Voidverse by Saga Press. Good job, Saga Press. I'll put the cover back on later. Anyway, what is Voidverse all about? Well, our main character, I think, is called the Sinker, and her home was destroyed by something called the Construct. So she goes to live somewhere called the Void. And in this void, there are vertically stacked rocks, and that's what people live on in the void. What is the void? I don't know. What is the Construct? I don't know. Who is the Sinker? I don't know. This is a pretty weird and vague blurb, premise, description for a book, but it has my interest. The author, Damien Ober, was a writer for the Netflix series The OA, which I haven't watched, but I have heard good things about. And this book, while it does have kind of mixed reviews on Goodreads, Bookborn, over at the channel Bookborn, go subscribe, read it and recommended it, and she thought it might be the kind of thing that I might enjoy. So I like things that take a big swing. I might read this and be like, I didn't get it. Recently, I read There Is No Anti-Memetics Division. It didn't fully click for me, but I'm glad that I read it because it is unique, and it's the kind of book where for some people it might be 2 stars, 3 stars, but for other people, it's going to be a 5-star read. It's going to be their favorite book of the year. And I feel like this is that kind of book. Might be a huge miss, but it could also be a huge hit, and that is a swing worth taking. So there you go. Those are 10 sci-fi books that I recently picked up. You might have heard of some of them, but hopefully something there was new. Hopefully something there sounded intriguing to you, and you pick it up and give it a go. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash or just gently click the subscribe button. And if you really enjoyed it, consider checking out the perks of becoming a Patreon member, where you can become one of my robots, androids, or cyborgs, like Nima, Anu Eden, Half-Ogre, Sakawe, Samil, Colin, and the world-renowned Bamsis. And you can find more sci-fi content over here.